India wants to position itself as a refinery hub. Why would a country which is heavily dependent on crude imports to meet its demand would hold such aspirations? Is it logical? The country's refining capacity has increased from a modest 62 million ton annually in 1998 to 254 million ton per annum. But India is 85% plus import dependent for its crude oil supply to meet its demand. On February 6, in his inaugural address at the India Energy Week 2024, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, "Additionally, we have solidified our position as one of the globally with our current refining capacity surpassing 254 million ton per annum. By 2030, we aim to elevate India's refining capacity to 438.7 million ton per annum." According to S&P Global Commodity Insights, India's oil product demand increased 398,000 barrels a day or 8.2% a year and 8,000 barrels a day on a month in January 2024 on the back of higher consumption of all products except fuel oil. Is India's desire to turn into a global refinery hub is a situation of turning its disadvantage into an advantage. To make India a refinery hub, long-term crude oil supply security would be desirable as India's domestic production falls short of demand. In fact, the target set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reduce import dependence by 2023 has long been missed. Speaking at the Urea Sangam conference in March 2015, Modi had urged all stakeholders to increase domestic production of oil and gas to reduce import dependence from 77% to 67% by 2022 when India celebrated its 75th year of independence, which he called as Amrit Par. He further said that import dependence should be brought down to 50% by 2030. Why is India talking about becoming a refinery hub? The basic premise could be that the Western countries may not be going for new refineries due to climate pressures. And this could be to India's advantage to emerge as a refinery hub to sustain the supply. So is India on the right path? Is India's strategy right? What holds the future? What India can do and has started doing, but could do this even on a larger scale, is import Russian crude oil, refine it into petroleum products and then sell those petroleum products to Europe. Because Europe won't buy petroleum products that are made by Russia, but they will buy petroleum products made from Russian crude oil as long as they're made by some other country like Turkey or Indonesia or India. And so there's definitely a big opportunity there. In fact, there was just an article that came out today talking about how India has been importing so much Russian Urals crude. So there are different blends of crude oil. They've been importing so much of the Russian Urals blend that there are a bunch of tankers of a different blend of oil that are just sitting there and haven't been unloaded. And so I do think that if India is interested and planning to pursue becoming a regional global refining hub, it would be beneficial to build refineries that can handle various different types of crude. One of the problems in the US is that all of the vast majority of the refineries are set up to handle heavy sour crude, which was the primary type of crude that they were importing when they were built. But the United States is actually producing a lot of very light crude oil now, and the refineries aren't set to use that, to optimally use that. And one of the things that India could do is make sure that it builds, if it's going to be building new refineries, that they can process a lot of different types of crude. Because, right now there might be a lot of a certain kind, but that could shift in the future, and that would definitely make it a more dynamic hub. Also, India has the benefit of having a lot of ports and has a good coastline. In the US, most of the refining is actually done right on the Gulf Coast because it's a very good port. But there are a variety of really good ports and situations in the coastline of India that make it definitely very amenable to this. Those in the refinery business see it as balance of trade, that is, import of crude oil and export of refined petroleum products. So how does this balance of trade work? How will India create this trade balance without disturbing its fiscal math? One would need to have a hard look at the greenfield refineries, as it would require at least 20 to 25 years horizon to do the techno-economic viability studies, as well as climate change factors on the transition. Another issue will be banks and fizz long-term loans for the greenfield refineries, given that the climate demand or the climate transition is the buzzword. Therefore, the question, what should India do? Is India on the right path? India already imports a lot of stuff. They're not necessarily exporting a lot. But if you're going to build refineries, because India doesn't actually produce the crude oil, they're going to have to be importing that crude oil from somewhere, but then they're going to be producing petroleum products and exporting it. Because the idea is they're going to make more oil, they're going to make more gas, more petroleum products than they need. So they're going to export it. And as no, they're saying it's a good way to kind of deal with this trade imbalance. But for an example, India's demand for petroleum products, domestic demand is expected to skyrocket. Most people can agree that with the way the Indian economy is developing, demand for petroleum products is going to increase. And can be less expensive to consume those products that are manufactured or that are made at home. So you kind of run the risk that they're going to build these refineries, they're going to start this, and they're going to need to sell them domestically, and then they're not going to make as much money as they would if they were selling them abroad. So you have to take that into account and make sure that, say, because the margins on refining are not always so great. A lot depends on the price of oil. A lot of people thought that it was going to be a lot higher in 2023 than it ended up being. Likewise, in 2022, nobody expected that Russia was going to invade Ukraine, and suddenly prices were going to skyrocket for some time. So there's always the unexpected, and it really is impossible to accurately forecast where the price of oil is going. So you could end up building all this stuff, and then suddenly the margins are gone because prices are higher. Chances are prices will go back down because one thing that we do seem to know about the oil market is that it operates in cycles. The way out for India is to strike between its diplomatic relations and commerce, as it has to focus on economic growth, work on its fiscal math and employment generation.